you did it. You finally walked away from your job. You took the leap and you started your career break. But what nobody tells you is that within those first 3 months, that a certain sort of chaos occurs. And no, not stressful, crazy chaos. It's a sort of chaos that happens with the shifts within your mindset that you may experience as a high achieving, high performing, overachieving millennial that you are. And it's going to mess with you in ways that you may not anticipate. And that's what I want to talk about in today's video. I'm 3 months into my career break, and I want to talk about some of the most protruding thoughts and feelings that I've had within these last 90 days, little over 90 days of being on a career break. And I want to talk also too about the moment in which I had to kind of stop myself and remind myself on why I'm taking a career break to begin with. So let's get into it. So let's start off with the first month, right? Those first 30 days, you are going to be riding the high of just knowing that you don't have to get up the next day and go to work. That feeling alone, right? You is going to carry you through. But the biggest part of that is just that feeling of relief that comes along with it. That feeling of relief is just absolutely priceless. And it's just going to just be such a weight lifted off your shoulder, such a pressure just off of your back. It's going to be an amazing feeling. And that is going to carry you through at least the first maybe week, if not 2 weeks or more, depending, right? Because I know that's what happened with me. I was just so relieved that I just didn't have to get up super early and get ready for an extremely long day of work, and then come home feeling exhausted. Just the thought of that alone was just the best feeling. On top of, now again, we're talking about within this first month, right? On top of just not having to wake up to an alarm is the best feeling, because you don't have that anticipation, right? Or even that, feeling. I don't know how to, where you're just like, that feeling where you're just like, time to make the donuts type. Hey, I'm dating myself with that reference. If you know that donut reference, put a donut in the comments. But yeah, just that feeling of, knowing that you don't have to go to work the next day. And then what comes along with that, especially if you're someone dealing with burnout, and taking a career break because of it, just experiencing that Sunday dread is what they call it. It's just like that feeling of anxiousness that you get, anxiety surrounding you knowing that you're going to have to work, tomorrow. You get your weekends off, most likely a Saturday and a Sunday, right? You may have time to enjoy your Saturday, but you probably spend most of the day Sunday thinking about, dang, I gotta go to work tomorrow. And it could possibly, get in the way, of you really relaxing and enjoying the day. I know it has for me on many occasions, not all the time, but definitely on a lot of occasions. And that's, when the burnout was really real. And so that first month, those are going to be the things. Now, also something too that you might find happening is you might find that you're still really busy, even though you're not working anymore. And you're just busy because you're finally getting a chance to like do all the things that you've been wanting to do, whether it's start a new hobby or like start, taking time to go see your family and friends, or going out or what, however you may have planned out your career break. You might just be just catching up to life, honestly. You might be busy catching up to life. That's probably the best way that I can put it. And because you haven't been living, because, work has, your whole life kind of really surrounded work. And I'm talking directly to the high performing ones, right? The high performing, overachieving, high functioning, millennials where you can't waste an ounce of time, right? I mean, you might still go out and do some stuff, right? But you're never really maybe 100% present because in the back of your mind, you're thinking of you got work and stuff to do, right? So just speaking to that, you might just find yourself busy catching up to life. I know for me, I prioritized reselling a lot of excess items that I moved home, back home with my mom with that I just didn't have the space for. And that consumed my everyday life. Um, the majority of my day, especially for like maybe I would say the first 3 weeks that I was home, and I made videos about it. So much so that I was just like, I feel like this is another full-time job because that's what it felt like. I don't know if you guys ever if you ever resold things on like a Facebook marketplace or some similar platform. It's very time consuming, especially if you have a lot of things that you want to try to resell, which I did. It's pretty time consuming making those, ads and things of that nature, especially when, again, high performing, overachieving, recovering perfectionist, when it has to be right because you're trying to attract, serious buyers to buy some of these things that you're trying to sell, right? So it can definitely get really time consuming. And so I found myself spending a lot of time focusing on that, whether it was creating the ads or actually selling things, dropping things off, donating things, the whole nine. So I was really, really busy. I was definitely super busy that first month. And then finally, stuff started to taper off and completely come to a halt by the end of the first month that I was there. So I kind of shifted focus on other things. Um, but those are the main things within that first month. The immediate feeling of relief that you feel knowing that you don't have to go to work. Okay. The pressure that is lifted off of you, knowing that, that alarm clock isn't going to wake you up super early to go into work, and you don't have to experience that Sunday dread of anticipating going to work and it being stressful or your cortisol levels being raised, right? And then you might also just find that you're really busy just catching up to life. So those are like really the main things that stood out the most for me within my first month, those first 30 days. All right, moving into month two, some of that stuff might trickle into month two, but really was starting to really stand out once time kinds of starts slowing down, is the feeling to be productive. Oh, this is one thing that I did neglect to mention. This is also another big thing, and I actually completely did a separate video about this as well, is your days within that first month, maybe the first 2 months, I would say. So this goes within the first 2 months, depending on if you plan your days out or not, you're going to find that time seems to really slip away from you. Like the time, it just goes by so fast, and you would think it would be the complete opposite. But what I noticed is that for me, for most days, I was pretty busy just doing all of those things that I was just telling you about, on top of just doing errands and just regular chores and just, spending time with my dog and taking my dog for a walk, that sort of like everyday kind of stuff. I would do these things and then look up and it'd be like 7 p.m. at night, and I'd be like, oh man, what have I done for the day? Dang, and I still got to do my YouTube video. Like it was pretty much the epitome of what my days look like, especially like that first month. Into the second month, I just was like, where is the time going? What am I even doing? And what I realized is that it's because I really wasn't planning my days. My days didn't really have any real structure, and my routine hadn't really been settled because I always, like I mentioned before, my career break has a few moving parts to it, different things that have occurred over just within this first 3 months that were completely time shifting, like that completely shifted the dynamic of my day. One being, starting caregiving responsibilities to help my mom recover from a major surgery. So that completely shifted the dynamic of my day again. And then that started to consume most of my day. But even before that, even before I took on those responsibilities, I really didn't have like real structure. So the time just seemed to escape me. And even now, 3 months in, my mom is recovering really well from her back surgery. And as time goes, she's able to do more and more things on her own. And it's freeing up a little bit of, more time for me. But still not really being able to settle into one real set routine to kind of structure my day around. Especially when it comes to, for me, content creation for this YouTube channel. But the whole point I'm trying to make here is once you add that structure in, you'll realize, okay, time doesn't kind of escape you as much, because if you don't have that structure, it's going to just seem like the days are just flying by and you're going to be like, what did I even do? And it's already nighttime. So that's like the biggest thing that happened, like the biggest shift is just like how time tends to go by. And you would think that with you not working that it would go by slow, but for me it seemed to go by even faster. It seemed to go by even faster now that I'm on a career break. So settling into month 2, you might now, your days are slowing down. You realizing, okay, you have a little bit more time to sit and think, and you might not feel so comfortable with that. You might feel like, okay, I'm just kind of sitting around and I could be doing something productive. Let me find something else to do, right? And because you're not super comfortable with just not doing anything. And for me, I remember when I first actually took a nap, like a midday nap. And it didn't happen right away because I was constantly just doing stuff. Even when I got home, like even when I started my career break and moved home, I was just constantly just doing stuff because I was so focused on like the reselling of the items and donating and stuff that really just consumed a lot of my time. And I remember when I first finally, because I was exhausted, and I don't even think this was really until I even started caregiving responsibilities, because I was just so exhausted. And it was just like midday, and I just was like, man, I'm so tired. Let me take a nap. And I felt so good taking that nap. Once I woke up, I felt great. I felt re-energized. And I'm like, why? Why have I been putting this off? This is the whole point. Okay, this is the whole point of why you're taking a career break, to prioritize your rest. And I've mentioned in other videos how I'm trying to prioritize rest, but for me, it was more so mental rest. It wasn't like the actual like taking naps kind of rest. It was just more so not piling on so much for me to do, like, because I don't want to, wear out the bandwidth that I do have left, right? Coming off of dealing with burnout, just coming off of recovering from burnout and things of that nature. I just didn't want to overload myself. And so when I was referring to rest, it was really more of like a mental rest. And I was forgetting about the physical rest, right? And I just kind of got on myself and I was like, no, you need to take more naps. You know what I mean? And so I started doing that, not every day, but when I just kind of felt like, okay, I need to just go ahead and just, rest my eyes for a little bit, I would just go ahead and do it because I just wasn't, and I know it sounds weird to say, but wasn't doing it. I'm just always so used to just doing something, being productive, not, not wasting time, whether it's learning something or not even necessarily since I've been home as far as learning something, but, just doing something where I feel like, okay, this time was not wasted, right? So you can, you know, whether it was a chore or an errand or whatever, you know what I mean? Just not feeling like I was wasting time. That's kind of how I've been moving. And now that I'm trying to really, really, I have to force myself to just be okay with not doing anything. And that is definitely something that I still wrestle with. It's getting easier as time passes, but it's still something that I still kind of wrestle with. And it's going to be something that you wrestle with too, especially when you're used to just constantly doing stuff, because we're so conditioned to not be lazy, to always be doing something. If you got to be hustling if you want to be successful, and it stays with you. It doesn't go away overnight, especially when you've spent years, decades with this mentality and this type of culture. It doesn't go away overnight, especially when you do something as drastic as taking a career break completely, right? So and with that, you might actually start having these feelings of guilt about it. You know what I mean? Feeling bad that you're not doing enough, right? Wishing that well, I could be doing more, or I should be doing more, and it's not about like negative self-talk or anything like that. It's literally really you just wrestling with your old identity versus who you're trying to become, which is someone who isn't subscribing to hustle culture anymore, right? That doing that is what got you burnt out in the first place. It's just the reason why you're on a career break in the first place, right? It's more so about that and allowing your new identity to come through. And it's not about being lazy or anything. It's about choosing yourself first and prioritizing rest, right? So that you can go into that next chapter of your life fully prepared mentally, physically, and, ready to do whatever it is that you set out to do. All right, so by month 3, now this is when it starts getting interesting. You'll probably start feeling this in month 2 as well. Definitely within that 60 to 90-day mark. This is when you really have some free time and you're like, okay, really don't have much going on. I could be working. I might as well start making some money since I'm really not doing anything. Or what could I do that could fit into this time frame that I have where I know that I'm not going to be busy? You're going to start considering looking for jobs. You might even look at a couple of job listings. You might consider doing gig work, right? Because you're like, well, I could just be making some money while I'm not really doing anything. That's that hustle culture coming in again, right? That's that high performing coming in again, right? And that's real. It's what I did, I was just like, man, even I was like, man, I did I door dashed the first career break. I could do that again. I could see myself, you're going to start really having that, those thoughts about maybe going back to work way sooner than you're ready. You just feel because you're not doing anything that automatically symbols or signals that you're ready to start back working. And that definitely might not be the case, especially because, and I mentioned this in other videos, as far as if you're recovering from burnout, depending on how long you've been dealing with burnout symptoms and then how severe those symptoms were, especially if it started affecting your physical health and stuff like that, you need way more time to recover from that than you might realize. And it's easy to feel rested and rejuvenated when you're on a career break because you're not doing it. You've literally left behind all that stuff that was stressing you out before. And so after you haven't had to deal with it for a couple of months, you're like, okay, now I'm good. But what happens is if you really don't do the work and really give yourself that time to really completely 100% like decompress from all of that, you're going to feel good initially going back to work, but it may not last long. Now, you might, again, be used to pushing through and things of that nature, and you just push through because, you got to get to that next level, or you got to just get that coin, get that bag, whatever. but you're going to find yourself back in the same predicament. At least I know that's what happened with me, right? So depending on how long you've been dealing with that burnout, you're going to need twice as long, if not 3 times as long, to recover from it, or more. You might even need more time, because some cases of burnout can be like that severe, or like if you just experience like just crazy, just like workplace, environments and things of that nature. It takes time to really recover from that, both mentally and physically. So that's really the biggest thing that I've noticed as far as these last 90 days is that I've really just been kind of having to battle with the feeling that I could, start back working, you know, even if I was lucky enough to find a remote work or, gig work, if nothing else, right? And not necessarily a full time, 9 to 5 or anything, even though you look at some of that stuff too. But when this happens, that is when, I have to remind myself, this is why you're taking a career break, okay? Because that is no longer the lifestyle that you want to subscribe to anymore. You are done with the rat race. You're done hopping on that hamster wheel to hustle, 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 and to keep moving and to keep making money, right? And I understand, especially if you're on a career break and you have a family and to take care of. But if you're able to afford to even take the career break, chances are you've factored in your finances, you know what I mean? And you need to just trust your plan. Whether you are on a career break from your like official full-time 9 to 5 career, and you may still be doing like some type of part-time work or gig work, that's fine if that's factored into your career break. But if you're able to just completely just take a step back from working altogether, you have to just kind of remind yourself, this is why you're on the career break to begin with, right? The whole point of it is to prioritize your rest, right? The whole point of it is to give yourself a real honest chance of recovering from burnout, right? Excuse me. And that's what I had to do. Like, no, okay, no, we're not doing this. You have a plan. You have everything kind of set out, and you just need to follow that, and and move on to the next chapter, because that old lifestyle, that is what you don't want anymore. That high productivity, always moving, always hustling. That's what we've walked away from. We're not choosing that. We are rejecting that, and we're choosing ourselves. I'm choosing myself. You're choosing yourself, right? And you're betting on yourself and your knowledge, your expertise, your skills, that you'll be able to use that to move on into the next chapter when you're ready. So those are some things that you may, definitely experience within the first 90 days of your career break. These are definitely things that I've, experienced and had, thoughts and my feelings about. But if any of this resonated with you, I invite you to check out a couple of other videos that I did where I specifically talk about things that you don't expect, or the things that no one tells you when taking a career break. I'll link those at the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching the video. And my name is Kayosha, and I show up to remind you that choosing yourself is the ultimate wealth. Until next time, take care.